Hi, my name is Susan Voss Rothmeyer, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I work in mental health crisis. And Bridgetown has asked me to present to you a background on mental illness and crisis work. So in a way that might help any of you who are then going to be volunteering with Night Strike and understanding the background to illness and the sorts of things you might encounter at Night Strike. So first of all, to start with, I want to review some of the myths that you may have encountered about mental illness, because often mental illness comes with a bunch of myths that people tend to think about people who suffer from mental illnesses, and sometimes those myths kind of cloud our judgment. So I'll run through several. You have a handout there, and if you glance through that, and as I read through them, just consider what myths you may have thought or subconsciously sort of been thinking about mental illness and people who suffer from illnesses, and think on that and just think if those are myths that you might need to dispel within yourself. So one of them is psychiatric disorders are not true medical illnesses. People who have a mental illness are, quote, crazy. People with a severe mental illness, such as schizophrenia, are dangerous. Mental illness is a character defect. Mental illness is due to a sinful nature or the outcome of demon possession. Having a mental illness means a person has failed and can will it away in some way. People who are depressed could snap out of it if they really tried hard enough. Schizophrenia means split personality. Mental illness is rare and does not affect many people. People who tell people they are suicidal are just, quote, seeking attention. And taking a psychiatric medication is a cop-out, and people could handle their illness if they just try hard enough, or if they have a better faith in God to remove the struggle. So those are some myths that you may have encountered other people thinking, or you may think them yourself. And a lot of times those are just not simply true about people who experience mental illness. Mental illness actually is an actual illness that often is based on a chemical imbalance or something within the brain. Sometimes it relates to trauma and other backgrounds in their life or in their childhood, but often there's a physical component to it that they're predisposed to. It's classified as a dysregulation of mood, thought, or behavior, and there's many causes to it. So there's no individual way that we could sort of mark and say that's the reason somebody has a mental illness. And there's a wide story for anyone who suffers from it. So just keep that in mind, that they come with quite a history and a story that they've struggled with, and now they're presenting in a way that is an extra challenge that they have in their life. So I want to go through some of the major mental illnesses that you may encounter. The first one being schizophrenia. Schizophrenia has the presence of 2 or 3 key symptoms, one of which is hallucinations, which is often audio or visual hallucinations. Most often in schizophrenia, it's audio hallucinations that people encounter. If somebody has a visual hallucination, that tends to be more of a brain impact that's happened to them, such as an accident, but schizophrenia often involves auditory hallucinations. Another symptom is delusions, and delusions can be several different forms. One can be that they can be very grandiose, which means they think they have special powers or special authorities. Another can be paranoia, that they fear that someone is after them. Often delusions relate to religion or the government, or somebody sort of a conspiracy theory happening is common. Not always. Sometimes people have very fanciful, like fancy, nice, enjoyable delusions, but usually they're pretty dark and scary delusions that people encounter. It's important to keep in mind that people are very fixed in those beliefs and can't be talked out of it. So if you encounter somebody that's talking in a way that you're sure is delusion based, not reality based, just go with it. Don't try to convince them that it's otherwise or argue with them about it. You can say that you don't have that same experience that they have, but don't try to argue or talk them away from their delusion, because it's not going to go anywhere. Another piece of schizophrenia is a thought disorder, and that is basically that somebody's thoughts are pretty disorganized and not able to track, often tangential, and their thoughts are meandering all over. Sometimes it sounds confusing, so if you're talking to somebody and it starts out linear and then it sidetracks and it's all over the map and you can't figure out what they're talking about, that's possibly a thought disorder that they have. So those are 3 of the key symptoms of schizophrenia: hallucinations, delusions, and thought disorder. Other signs that involve schizophrenia can be that they have a flat affect, or that they have difficulty tracking what's going on and organizing themselves to get to appointments. Sometimes there's poor hygiene, a number of other pieces that fit into that. And so that's schizophrenia is a common illness that you may encounter. It's not terribly common. It's about 1% of the American population, but among the homeless population, it's a higher percentage. So you may encounter people at Night Strike who have that, who maybe are pretty functional if they're on medications or have insight about their illness and have been working on it, but there may be a layer of psychosis within there that you may be encountering. So another illness is depression, which is classified as having a very low mood, and other signs include that somebody may also have a flat affect. That means their expression is pretty flat and not the full range of expression that we may encounter. They also may have limited interests in things they used to enjoy, they no longer enjoy. They may feel hopeless or anxious or irritable. They can also have difficulty sleeping, either a lack of sleep or sleeping too much, and a lack of appetite can go along with it. So a lot of it is just a low mood that then takes away a lot of their ability to function or have interests in life that they used to have. Sometimes they become suicidal. That's the more extreme version. And the best form of treating depression is through medications and therapy. And often people can be pretty stabilized if they do both of those things combined. If you encounter somebody who is suicidal at Night Strike, we've talked with the staff about this, that you would call the Multnomah County Crisis Line or seek a other Night Strike staff person to consult about doing that. But that number to have on hand is 503-988-4888, and just let them know where you are and what's going on, and they can send a crisis response worker, which is my team that I work with, to come and meet with that person separately somewhere to make sure that they're safe. So another illness is bipolar, and that's classified as fluctuations between a low mood and a manic mood. So a low mood, being a depressed mood, is what we just talked about. A manic mood is an abnormally elevated mood. So it can be, somebody can be very euphoric. Sometimes they don't sleep for several days. They might be really grandiose about their life and who they are and what it is they're doing, taking on lots of projects and just working at a fast pace through life for several days without sleeping. That's a more extreme form of mania. They can be very distracted. They can be impulsive. They can have racing thoughts and talking a lot, like very fast talking. Sometimes it can be to the extreme of being psychotic. Any of these illnesses, actually, in an extreme version, can become psychotic. Depression can, mania can. So bipolar is that extreme fluctuation between between a low mood and a very high mood. So the last one I'll review is anxiety. there's a list of different forms of anxiety out there that we won't go through all of them, but one is generalized anxiety disorder, which is the most common, and that is just what you would think it is, which is excessive worry, very anxious, tends to be irritable, sleep issues happen, get very tired easily, maybe can't concentrate. It's just a lot of worry and anxiety in life beyond what might be usual for their circumstance. Another not too infrequent anxiety disorder that you may encounter, especially among people who are homeless, is what we call PTSD, which stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. And that is when somebody's experienced an extreme trauma. So it might be child abuse or domestic violence or some sort of extended trauma they've encountered, or war veterans is another form of trauma that may come up. And it involves intrusive memories and fear that the event may happen again, maybe fear that there's recurrent themes happening. They might have outbursts about it. So it's just that trauma really present and common in one's life. So those are some of the key major illnesses that you may encounter. Your handout goes through a lot of more details on some of those. The last thing I want to go through is the crisis de-escalation techniques that I would recommend kind of keeping in mind if you're at night strike and you encounter somebody who's upset, maybe somebody who's experiencing a psychosis and getting delusional about what's going on around them and feeling paranoid, maybe somebody who is just easily agitated and upset or having a manic episode. There's any number of ways somebody may be in crisis in a way that is hard to sort of calm down or separate from others around them. So I'll run through, you have a handout on that, and I'll run through some of the specifics on those. One is to remain calm. So think of it as an old-fashioned scale. When you, if one side raises, then the other side needs to go down. So that means if the guest is very upset and not calm, then you're going to need to be calmer. The more upset they are, the calmer you need to be, because you have to sort of equalize that out. Another is avoid a scene. So the person will probably get more upset and more agitated if a crowd forms around them, or even if there's too many people trying to help them. So I'd recommend just a couple of you as volunteer or staff to be with that person, and others don't need to be there unless you need a lot of support, and encourage others who are maybe standing around and watching to move on to something else. Give attention to the person, so validate their concern and be present with them, listen to what they have to say. They're part of why that person may be upset is because they're not feeling validated in their life in general. So if you're there and you listen to them and you're like, I hear what you're saying, let's talk about it, that might dispel some of the anxiety they're having. Another one is body position. So don't get too close, don't get too far, stand about 2 or 3 feet away at a comfortable distance, but close by that they know that you're present with them, and don't get eye to eye, toe to toe with them, like stand right at them, but maybe stand a little bit to the side, so at an angle with their shoulder, and look over to them. If they're really upset and you're like too straight at them, sometimes that can feel a little threatening to them. Another is nonverbal cues. So keep it non-threatening. That means whatever it is that the way you're standing, that your posture, your general sort of presence toward them, just keep it really calm and low key and not threatening and not sort of cowering toward them. Another one is ignore challenging questions. So if they're saying things like, wait, who's in charge here, or you don't understand me, or you're too young to get me, or they're challenging you and who you are. They don't know you, but they're coming up with ways to sort of insult you. just ignore that and figure out what maybe is the concern underneath it. So maybe they're feeling not listened to, maybe they're feeling the environment is a little chaotic right now, whatever it is underneath there's some sort of message or concern that they have. So just reach out for that and say, I understand you're upset and you need to be listened to right now. Let's figure out how we can help you feel more comfortable. Another is be empathetic. So again, that's the theme of not being too judgmental, and sort of be there and know that even though they may be frustrating you and others in the moment, they're at this space because of some sort of circumstance that has happened. So just sort of be present and a little patient with that. Clarify feelings and needs. So meaning listen to the message. If they're saying they need space, or they need to take a walk, or they need you to listen to their concern, or they're mad at this other person that is there as well. Sort of listen to that, clarify what's needed, say, would it help you if we walk away? Would it help you to sit down and help us problem solve the argument with that person and then separate them and do that? Whatever it is, kind of clarify what they need so they understand that you're trying to help them through that. Allow them to verbally vent if they need to. Again, maybe not if they're around other people, but if they have a moment, it doesn't need to go on for long. If it goes on too long, you can set a limit, but if at a moment they need to sort of yell and they're not giving a space for you to step in, then allow that for a short period of time, and then when there's a break and they're speaking, then step in. But if you counter it too much or sort of interrupt them too much, it may make them more agitated. And the last one is set appropriate boundaries and limits. So this is your space, this is Night Strike, this is not where you need to let anything and everything happen, certainly. So if they're just being inappropriate and it's upsetting other guests around you, say we need to separate, we need to step aside, kind of guide them over somewhere else. Be clear with what the limits are, and that you can't let them do certain things, that you're here to help them, you want to support them, but you need it to be done in this certain way. So those are just sort of, you have to take each situation as it happens. So there may be some of these pieces that work and some that don't, but these are some guidelines to sort of keep in mind if those situations come up, and certainly use your other volunteers and other staff to help you figure out the best situation. If it ever gets too out of hand and you feel like you can't really calm it down, you can also certainly call police if needed, or if it doesn't quite need police but you still need a crisis response, call the Multnomah County Crisis Line, because there are crisis clinicians that can come out and sort of help assess what is going on. So again, that number is 503-988-4888. So I hope that's helpful, and good luck with your experience with Night Strike. Thanks.